The Trump campaign and the Republican Party are taking legal action to stop the state of New Jersey from moving forward with its November election plans. Their lawsuit claims Governor Phil Murphy's executive order to send out mail-in ballots to all Garden State voters will create a recipe for disaster, leading to vote fraud. Well, here to set us straight on mail-in balloting is Research Director at the Government Accountability Institute, Eric Eggers. Mr. Eggers is author of the book, Fraud: How the Left Plans to Steal the Next Election. Eric, it's always good to see you. So New Jersey, 8 other states, the District of Columbia, are going to mail-in balloting. Others may do the same. Is this a recipe for disaster, as the president says, or just giving more people an opportunity to participate in the election?
It's giving lots of opportunities for lots of things, including, I think, sadly, an increase in the possibility of voter fraud. I mean, look what happened just in June, 1 month after New Jersey conducted its first ever mail-in election statewide during a primary. You had in one of the largest cities in the state, Paterson, New Jersey, an elected official and multiple other people indicted and arrested on allegations of voter fraud. They found hundreds of ballots suspiciously bound together in just a few mailboxes. You had other political operatives admitting to investigators that they would go around and take ballots from certain mailboxes. There were allegations that they were also taking signatures from ballots and compiling their own database of signatures to be able to possibly forward signatures on additional ballots. So I would say, based on the limited evidence we have of what does a mail-in ballot election in New Jersey look like, it isn't good.
Well, we often hear there's no evidence of mail-in balloting fraud. You just mentioned one, New Jersey, but there is. How about some others that you've found?
Yeah, unfortunately, in my research, I found that, and it's not just me, bipartisan experts agree that anytime you have ballots that are cast via mail, whether it's absentee ballots or the mass mailing of ballots to people, whether they request them or not, it's going to be an increase for recipes for fraud. Unfortunately, senior citizens often fall prey and become victims in this practice. There's an entire sort of industry known as granny farming, and that is when senior citizens are targeted by political operatives. They know that the absentee ballots or mail-in ballots will arrive. They're there to ostensibly help senior citizens. And unfortunately, oftentimes you see outcomes that are less than ideal for not only democracy, but our elderly.
Others committing fraud against our senior citizens. So I know Democrats and never Trumpers are saying the president's just trying to steal the election by suppressing the vote. And even Republican Senator Mitt Romney, he claims that mail-in ballots would be easier to track for fraud than fraudulent electronic voting. What do you think of that?
Well, I would just say that's inconsistent with the evidence we've seen so far when we've seen increases in mail-in balloting or absentee balloting through the primaries in this COVID era. States like Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and California have seen problems in terms of ballots not being delivered, ballots not being counted by Election Day. They've had to stop and go back and double check to see if double voting was occurring. We've had, massive increases in terms of the delays. And it is actually harder because the reality is our system is just not ready for the predicted doubling of increase of mail-in balloting coming this fall. And I would say if you look at some of the reports coming out of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and California, I think it's right to be concerned that these states are just unprepared for the volume that is pending.
And Eric, what about the argument that the country needs to go to mail-in balloting because it's unsafe for people to actually go out to the polls in the midst of a pandemic?
Well, I will say I actually voted in person yesterday in Tallahassee. Florida had their primary elections on August 18th, and, I'm still here. But obviously, I respect anybody that wants to protect their own health when participating in the electoral process. I just don't think it should happen at the expense of American democracy. And I think that the evidence, unfortunately, suggests that when we have increases in mail-in balloting and increases in absentee balloting, I think it only increases the likelihood of bad actors committing fraud.
Okay, Eric Eggers from the Government Accountability Institute and author of the book, Fraud: How the Left Plans to Steal the Next Election. Always good to talk to you, Eric. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much, Gary.